I've often imagined the utility company boards getting together once a year and having their board meetings at the base of a volcano, all wearing cloaks and masks and worshiping some gigantic owl carved into the side of a mountain. I mean, in my book, the utility companies and the way they're run are the closest thing we have these days to supervillains. I had a friend ask me one time, why do you guys want to live off-grid? I knew he didn't really want an answer because he followed it up with, living in the city, I have access to medicine and food anytime I want. I have a good job, and anytime I'm in trouble, the police are just a phone call away. So you're telling me that you and about 1 million other people are all crammed into a relatively small space so that you can be given medicine, given food, given a job that you can spend most of your time doing just to sustain your existence, and so that you can make someone other than yourself responsible for your safety and if you're ever in trouble. He said, yeah, that's modern life. I said, it's also how you run cattle. You know, the sheep spends its whole life worried about the wolf, ends up being eaten by the rancher. Yeah. We're not really friends anymore.
We started out with this bad boy. I think we paid $2,000 for it. You have to forgive the mess. We're using this area to stage everything that we're throwing away. It was me, Carrie, and the 2 kids. Now we just use it as a storage shed. And when the thieves came through, they left everything open, so it was just basically destroyed. This is what we had. We decided it'd be a great idea to put in a little wood stove. Only the wood stove that we were given was actually a coal burning stove. So when we put wood in it, it would shoot flames through the flue. And I had no idea that that wasn't how it wasn't supposed to be operating. I'm super surprised I didn't burn the place down in the middle of the night, knowing what we know now.
We moved out here in 2012, right at the end of the Mayan calendar. So, you know, it's the perfect time to start a dystopian sci-fi adventure. But I think the seeds for having moved out here and living the way that we do really started in 2009.
To pull it up there, because we had a tiny little econ car at the time, we bought this bad boy, which wound up being an amazing truck. I mean, we did so much work with it. We put in all the roads by using it to drag. And our thought process was, hey, if we're ever broken down in the middle of a blizzard, you know, we could survive in this thing. We drove it up here with that trailer attached to it, and that was our home for about the first 1.5 2 years.
About a year after the economy had just completely crashed, I had lost my job. We had a newborn, and we were living in Las Vegas. It was like the hottest day of the year. I think it was 120 something degrees outside, but it was a dry heat. All of a sudden, everything shut off. The TV, the computer, most importantly, the air conditioning. I'm calling the utility company. I'm trying to work something out with them because we were about 15 days late on our payment, but they weren't having any part of it. There was no emergency assistance. There was no help. There was no working out a deal with them. It was just, nope, you got to pay $450 in back bills, and you're also going to have to pay a $500 deposit just to get it turned back on for going forward. This was more money than I could come up with at the time. It was kind of a big deal, and luckily the water was included in our rent. Wouldn't you know it, the next day, the water gets turned off. What the heck? This is included in our rent. So I call the water company. They say there hasn't been a water account on that house in the last 1.5 years. Turned out that the landlord turned the water on illegally, just cut the lock, turned it on, and that's how he could afford to make it part of the rent. So I called him. He told me, hey, you know, the water company called me and they told me they're going to fine me $10,000. And I was like, well, I didn't turn the water on illegally. Instead of him making it right, he served us with an eviction notice. In Nevada, you can be evicted in 24 hours. I learned a couple of things from this experience. The first one was that some landlords are really good people and they care about the people that live in their houses. And some are absolute scumbags. The other thing I learned is the utility companies aren't there for you. They're there for them.
So we built this building here, this little outbuilding here, which we built 100% out of things that people that we met were throwing away. It was basically literally built out of garbage. And, you know, I've taken a bunch of stuff off of it. It was actually in pretty nice shape. I think I have some video or some pictures of us actually building it at the time. Because I didn't have enough materials to build a decent door or anything else, we called it the indoor-outdoor room. But it had a little section right over there where Carrie is that was attached to that door. And so we actually had a nice little extra space.
After we left Vegas, we were lucky enough to move back in with Carrie's mom, kind of start getting ourselves back together. It took about 2 years total for us to find our footing, but by then we had gotten ourselves into a little condo. It was not in a good part of town. And we had just had Seattle as well. So now we have 2 little babies, and I'm working in the trades, and we start looking towards the future. We want to live that American dream, buy a house and white picket fence, and we only needed like another half a kid and we'd statistically be there. So we started looking for houses. It was kind of a pipe dream. The economy was still in shambles. I'd only been at my job for about 8 months, so there was no bank that was going to finance us. On top of that, my credit was destroyed from the things that happened in Las Vegas. But we persisted. And one day Carrie was looking at houses and she came across an ad for owner-financed, completely raw property. And it got her attention.
So we were going nuts, living the way and where we were, and we had to make a change, period. While I was looking at homes for sale, I came across land for sale. So when I saw this piece of land, I was so excited. It was owner financed, so we didn't have to come up with a huge down payment right off the bat. We would have this space that we needed for our family to grow and spread out, and we could do whatever we wanted and have the freedom to choose what those things were and use our youth, put it to work, and build ourselves a life. There was so much happening around us with loud neighbors. And I had just had our second daughter, so I wasn't in the best of mind frames to be able to help him or address the things that I was also upset about within such tight quarters.
Yeah, I had one neighbor that would slam his security door at 2:30 in the morning and wake up Carrie and the baby. And one day I just snapped and I went out there, and the result of going out there was 8 cop cars showing up, and I had to get the hell out of there. There was people everywhere. I had no space. We had no privacy. That was not a life that I could continue to live.
It really came down to, is this my life forever?
It was not good, and I put Carrie and the girls through quite a bit during that period of time.
Or are we going to make a change, a drastic change that was addressing the things that we were having trouble with, and also looking towards the future long term and creating a life that we wanted for ourselves and for our family?
When we started to look at the off-grid living thing, it was like, well, that's something that we could do. We could afford that. We could make that happen. We don't need to take out a huge loan. We don't need to, have a bunch of money. We just need to have persistence. And my particular brand of persistence, which is more like the ability to slam head into wall until wall gives up, didn't really come in handy when we lived in the city, but here, it's like the best thing ever.
So when we found the property, we were like, this is it. We did all kinds of research on the general area and used satellite imaging to see what the property itself looked like, where the nearest towns were, what was in those towns, and how far everything was. And we purchased it. We bought it, sight unseen. We had yard sales every weekend, sold as much as we possibly could, and downsized. And then we used that money to purchase the trailer that we just showed you. and also the truck. And we packed everything up, and within 30 days, we arrived. We were here. We did it. Little did we know, literally, it was just the beginning of our adventure.
And over on this side, somebody had given us a old, just beat up motorhome. Really, I think they were just trying to get rid of it. And but it had a working refrigerator in it, a propane refrigerator in it. And so we attached that motorhome to this other side right over here. All of a sudden, we had like a 3-bedroom suite that we were living in. Mind you, none of it was watertight, and that was problematic.
It was a lifestyle that we could do that actually complemented our skills, although I didn't know anything about how to live like this. But I knew that I was persistent enough to figure it out. I mean, I couldn't even start a campfire. Yeah.
When Jason came home and told me that he had found a mobile home a guy wasn't using anymore, and they were just needed it off their property, and they had a new one, and he's telling me all of this, and I'm feeling like, I feel like I should have been really excited, but I didn't want to get my hopes up and then be devastated. So then Jason is telling me, oh, I can have, this person or this person, and we're gonna go and pick it up on the weekend, and then that fell through. And then it was, okay, the next weekend, now we can do this. And each plan was falling through because we needed some other equipment and bigger truck and lights and all this sort of stuff, right, to get it here. And everything kept falling through. So Jason tells me, I'm just gonna go there and pull it with a truck. And I'm like, is that safe? Can you do that? Like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking he's gonna come back, in an hour and be like, well, okay, we're gonna have to figure something else out. I hear the car coming down the road, and I go and I'm looking, and here's this mobile home. The truck's just pulling it, and he comes up into the driveway as far as he could make it so it wasn't sticking in the road. And I was just like, he did it. Like, oh my God, that is just, it still is like, really? How did you do? Man, that's crazy.
So this stuff, not really known for its getting traction in ability, right? It's volcanic ash, which is basically a very, very fine sand. It's like 100 feet deep. And it's very difficult to get traction in even when you're not pulling a trailer. But let's say you're trying to get a mobile home onto this property, okay? The truck weighs about 10,000 pounds, and the mobile home is 60 feet long, 12 feet wide, and weighs 27,000 pounds. So if you do the math, traction is an issue.
A friend of ours had come over once he got it here. And he's having me and this other guy, a friend of ours, like spot him. And I'll tell you what, that was like the worst. I should never have been asked to do that because I had no idea what I was going to tell him. He couldn't even hear me. And then he ran into a tree.
Dragging the house up the hill, we get around the first curve, boom, into a tree. Corner of the building smashed in.
Why didn't you tell me the tree was there? I'm like, I thought you saw it.
On the flattest part, I had to catch as much of a run as I possibly could just to get enough momentum to pull this thing up this part of the hill until we get to this part of the S-turn. From the front end of my truck was right about here, and I just gunned it so I could try and get up this hill and around this corner. And you'll notice this stump here. Cut down the tree, get around that corner, next corner, bang, side of the building, into a tree.
You can still see the damage on the house. We're gonna fix that one of these days.
Yeah, I've got some exterior work to do to make it to cover up those particular accidents that I had pulling it up the hill.
So he's backing down, and then he's got to get a running start every time to make it up this hill. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so scary. So he's like, whoo, you know, he pulls it up. He's getting closer and closer, and he finally makes it around this tree that we've been having an issue with. And he like gasses it again just to like get it up and over the last big hill.
The curves, the hill, the sand, all these things are coming together to create one hell of a time for me to get this gargantuan trailer up the hill. So once I finally got traction, got around this thing, I just took off as fast as I could to try and get up over this hill. And the truck makes it over the hill.
And then I just hear,
before it gets high centered right in the middle. Bang!
it's just hanging off the edge there. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen when he unhooks the car? Is this thing just going to fall backwards and like...
And then I keep trying to pull, and the truck in four-wheel low just immediately buries itself all the way to the axles. I know Carrie was thinking, what's going to happen when we unhook the truck? And it didn't really matter because the truck wasn't going anywhere.
It was so scary.
So we got this trailer, 30 feet of this trailer is hanging down here. And it comes back to about, I'd say about right here. And because I was coming around a turn, a fair amount of the trailer was over in this direction. So it was like off this little side of the road thing here. So the first thing I had to do was jack up the end of the trailer and build rollers out of like big 4-inch pipes. And I used to come along on that tree, and I pulled the house about 4 feet this way.
Jason is the most stubborn, hard-headed person I've ever met. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but where he wanted the house to be, it was gonna be there. That was where he was gonna get it, period. And, I remember being like, well, we could, like, just not have it up there and we could get it somewhere else. No.
So I get this idea. I'm like, I can do something about this. If I take that same 20-ton bottle jack that I had, and, it had like a 4-inch throw, so it would raise about 4 inches. But every time I'd put it under the trailer and jack it up, it would push into the dirt, because this doesn't have any stability to it, about 2 inches. So I could fully jack it out to about 2 inches of rise, which was just enough for me to fit a 2x6 under the frame. And then I did it again, and I did it again, and I did it again.
So for a month, Jason's got the bright idea, if I just get it a little bit higher every day, eventually that thing is gonna get level with the front, and we'll just be able to drive it right up, no problem.
I did that for a month straight and got the back end of the trailer about this tall, about this high, right? Which is about 7 feet or so.
So now this mobile home, the back side of it is higher off the ground than I am tall, and there's some clearance. Like, I wouldn't let the kids play in our driveway anywhere down like 50 feet. Just nobody could. I'm like, no, we're staying over here in case that thing just randomly falls. I don't know. I've never done it before. I've never seen anything like this before.
It was so unnerving to stand there and look at the house hanging cantilevered off the side of this hill, having jacked the thing up with a bottle jack, 7 feet up in the air.
And And then one day he comes home and he's like, I met somebody with a bulldozer. And they said they could just come on up and move that thing like in a heartbeat. So I'm gonna have him come on over and do that. I was like, sweet. Our road, right, which is completely being blocked by the mobile home right now, he just bloop, 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 right on over the side of the mountain where the road is cut in between. Goes right in front of it. Next thing I know, it's up and in place. It was done. And not only was it done, but it was right exactly where Jason was like, that's where it's gonna go, and that's where it is. And I'd like to point out, I very much like it there.
I like to think that the ramps that I built and all the work that I put into jacking it up helped the bulldozer to pull it up over the hill once he came out. And the thing about it is after spending that month doing that thing that was basically impossible, seeing the right tool for the job taught me a lesson because he had it in place from where it was stuck in about 15 minutes. I am fully aware that this lifestyle is not for everybody. In fact, it's probably not for most people. Could anybody do it? Sure. Should anybody do it? Probably not. And the reality of the thing is that whatever your situation is, the point of this story is to tell you that if there's something about it that you don't like, the right thing to do is change it. Do something different. And if you have the purpose of changing your life in any way that you want to change it, I encourage you to do it because I know you can. Because if we could, having zero of the skills necessary and having no money, no resources, and some would say no good sense, if under those conditions we could do it, I guarantee you can too. Believe it or not, this isn't even the best part of the story. And if you want to hear the rest of the story, be sure to subscribe because in the very, very near future, we're going to tell part 2. Until then, check out one of these videos, and we'll see you later.